Good evening, Wednesday nighters. I'm glad you guys are here with us tonight. I got a total of 2 in the audience, and it's empowering me. I'm glad you guys are with us tonight. I've got an announcement for next week. Remember, next week it is live and in person. So we're looking forward to seeing you guys. Remember, don't let your parents take off until you're cleared. We ask you the questions, we take your temperature. So don't let them take off till we give them the thumbs up. Can't wait to see you guys next week. Well, I've got a question to start out this evening, kind of like I usually do. Have you ever felt like you're on top of your game and suddenly been brought low? I've had that happen to me, and I can kind of look back at it now, and it's kind of funny, but at the time, I didn't think it was very funny. Let me tell you how it went, okay? How many of you have ever played paintball? If you've played paintball, I want you to put a thumbs up emoji in the chat, okay? Go ahead and do that. Well, this is the first time I'd ever played paintball, and I was playing with our middle school students at middle school camp, and I was stoked. We were playing what's called Respond. It's where if you get shot, you don't have to sit out of the game. You actually get to go touch the wall and come back and play again. And the object of the game was to get into a fort that was in the middle of the playing field. In the top of the fort, there was a briefcase. You had to get that briefcase and go up, get it, bring it back down, and bring it to your side without being shot. Now, I was totally into this. I was making some amazing shots. I'd left myself an opening, and I rushed up into the clubhouse. I grabbed the briefcase, and I'm walking down backwards, keeping my eye on the opposing team. I fire off a few more shots, and I see that I'm going to be able to make it to my side without any difficulties. I've got the briefcase in my hand. I swing it up in the air in victory, and right about that time, right before I could turn around and run to our side, I get shot in the back of the head by my own teammate. I turn around to give the young man, actually I think it was a young lady, I turned around to give her the evil eye, and as soon as I turned around, I got nailed. I mean, I just got plastered in the back of my legs. I was so covered with bruises. That night I counted 24 bruises. I actually have a picture of one of them. Check this out. Man, that is nasty. That was a nice one. That was a nice one. I was brought low, and the middle schoolers never let me forget about it. Well, maybe it wasn't early celebration that got you down or that caused you pain. Maybe it was dropping your guard. Now, I had that happen to me as well. You know, you're just walking through one of the most amazing experiences in life. You're expecting great things to continue. You're just kind of in the moment. It feels so good. So you drop your guard, and suddenly you find yourself in a painful place. That happened to me after when I first married my Maria Mia. We went on a 1-month honeymoon. Okay, we didn't have this huge ornate wedding. We saved all our money and we went on a 1-month honeymoon. We slept in the back of our truck most of the time and then some cheesy motels the rest of the time. But it was a whole month out on the road together. We saw Big Bend National Park, the Painted Desert, the Grand Canyon, Hollywood, Disneyland, Sequoia National Park, Yosemite National Park, Hoover Dam, Las Vegas, Carlsbad Caverns, Balmorhea State Park, and the Texas Hill Country. You get the picture. It was amazing. And when we came back home, I was stoked. I was absolutely on cloud 9. Well, the problem was when you get to a place like that and you're back at work. I used to work as a building contractor and did repairs. When you're back at work, you tend to drop your guard and be less careful than you should be. And that's exactly what happened to me. I was working on a home at that time that was called an A-frame home. It was a house that had very steep pitch on the roof, and the roof went all the way to the ground. And on the side of one of the pitches was a window unit built into the wall or the roof, and it was bolted on. So I put scaffolding up, and I still couldn't quite reach the top of the window, but I'm stretching up there, and I'm undoing all the bolts that are holding this window unit to the roof. And I get them all off, and I think, well, I'll just tug on it. I get my crowbar, I'm tugging, and it won't move. And I'm like, what's going on? All I could figure was that it was the adhesive holding the window unit on the side of the roof. And so I get this brilliant idea of pulling myself up on the window unit. I open the window, I stand on that window edge, I grab the side of the window unit, and I start jumping on it. And sure enough, it starts to go. And there I am riding down the side of the building holding this window unit. And I'm like, I'm gonna go with this. Come on, cowboy, I'm gonna do this. Problem was my big butt. About halfway down, my butt hits the scaffolding plank and throws my knees through the glass of the window. And one of the panes of glass scalps my kneecap. I mean, there was blood everywhere. I think I have a picture of my scar. You can see it outlined there. It's still there. Horrible memory. I had to drive myself to the hospital. I had to take more time off work. And now I had used our savings to go to our honeymoon, so there was no money coming in. I didn't have a lot of expenses, but no money made it difficult. And I felt so stupid. I can remember thinking, what a moron. Would you agree that when times like that happen, when things like that happen, you can feel discouraged? I mean, I can laugh about it now, but it wasn't a laughing matter back then. It hurt. It brought me down. I have found that great experiences can set us up for great disaster. Success in battle can cause us to relax, set down our weapons, and it leaves us vulnerable. Victory can sap our strength and leave us exhausted. And if we stay there, in that place of discouragement, nursing thoughts of defeat, it opens us up to more discouragement, and even worse, to depression. Maybe that's where you're at tonight. And the truth be told, when you're in that place, the last thing you want to hear are stories about great men who always did it great, who always responded to their chaotic situations and came out on top. That's the last thing you want to hear. Those kind of stories, if the truth is told, they can make you feel like you can't measure up. We think, right now, I can't be a David fighting Goliath. I can't even breathe right now with my anxiety. I can't relate to Joseph, who keeps his head up while going from chosen son to reviled slave. I can't handle something worse in my life. My worst right now is choking me. And I'm no Daniel. I'm no Shadrach, Meshach, or Abednego who walked tall when the rest of the world was brought to their knees. I can't stand up in the fire. I struggle just to get out of bed in the morning. I've been in that place. Maybe you've been there too. If you had, would you do me a favor? Would you put that in the comments? Been there. I don't want to feel alone on this. Been there. Been there. Well, that's why this week I felt we should take a break from showing heroes who did everything right to give you a glimpse of a hero that struggled, a hero that didn't feel like a hero that sunk into depression. Tonight we're going to look at an experience that took place in the life of a famous prophet. We read this part of the story, his part of this story, in the book of 1 Kings 19. Remember that, 1 Kings 19. Because as usual, I want you to go home tonight and I want you to read the whole story because it's a whopper. You've got to check it out. 1 Kings 19. Well, the prophet's name is Elijah. And Elijah, you may have heard that name before because he's that prophet who challenges a whole group of prophets of a false god, a fake god, to a duel, in essence. He says, bring it on. And there are 450 of these false prophets against little old Elijah. And the scene that unfolds after this challenge is crazy. It is crazy. There's chanting and mocking and name calling, bloody sacrifices, people cutting themselves. And then God radically shows up, and it even gets crazier. Fire falls from the sky, and by the time all the smoke clears, Elijah is the last man standing. And he is ecstatic. In his enthusiasm, he immediately prophesies the end of a 3-year drought, and within minutes it's pouring down rain. Elijah is on top of his game until the king who witnessed this whole thing goes home and tells his wife, the queen. And this is what happens. Listen. So Jezebel, that's the queen, sent this message to Elijah. May the gods strike me and even kill me if by this time tomorrow I have not killed you just the way you killed my prophets. And the Bible says it hit him so hard, he became afraid and he fled for his life. The next verses show us that Elijah was so depressed that he became depressed to the point of considering death. He was talking about it. It was that bad. Now, Elijah's sudden depression was most likely rooted in a combination of things. Yeah, I believe part of it was exhaustion from standing up for God. When we take that stand for God all day, all night, it can be exhausting. And I'm sure it was for Elijah. That was the first thing. And the second thing, maybe he did celebrate in his celebration, especially that predicting the end of the drought. Maybe he dropped his guard. But I believe the biggest reason for his discouragement and his depression was his expectations. Elijah expected God to react in a way that made sense to him. Elijah expected a revival, and he got rebellion. He expected transformation, and he got trouble. He expected a hero's welcome, and he got a kick in the seat of the pants. Maybe, like me, you can relate to Elijah. Maybe you've been there. Maybe you can relate to this statement. Listen to it. My discouragement is often tied directly to my expectations. My discouragement is tied to my expectations. God doesn't show up in a way we expect him to, and we're left feeling lost, discouraged, depressed. God does this great work in our lives, and we believe and we hope that it will be contagious, that it'll trickle down to our brothers, our sisters, our mom, our dad. We pour ourselves in prayer, hoping for that end, praying for that end. And we pour ourselves into a deeper relationship with Jesus, and mom and dad still fight. Dad still gets drunk. I don't get the boyfriend or the girlfriend, the car, the college acceptance letter, the job. Dad doesn't come back home. The relationship is over. And when God doesn't work the way we expect, we're overcome with discouragement. We sink into depression. When that happens, how do we dig ourselves out of that pit? How do we keep from staying stuck there? Well, I believe that the first thing that we need to do is retreat. But to retreat with a purpose. There are two types of retreat. One is running away from, kind of with your eyes over the back of your shoulder. In fear, you're trying to get away as quick as you can. The other type of retreat is running toward. Your eyes are on a goal, your eyes are on a solution, and you're running toward it. One, the running from, leads to more fear. It leads to isolation, and it produces discouragement. The other, it takes us to safety, to healing, and freedom. We see both types of this retreat in the life of Elijah. First, we see Elijah retreat into fear and isolation. Check out this verse. You can almost miss what happens here. It says, Elijah was afraid and fled for his life. He went to Beersheba, a town in Judah, and what did he do? He left his servant there. Big mistake. Elijah had authored and written a retreat plan for his life. He showed it to no one, isolated himself, and now he finds himself wishing for death. Now Elijah, he's all alone. He's by himself, just him and his pain. No one to lean on, no one to help him. Guys, who are the people you've disconnected from in your pain? Who are the friends you've cut off that could be a source of encouragement during this dark time in your life? Who are those people that could offer you a path back to peace? Guys, listen to me. Don't retreat from, because it leads to isolation. Yet even though Elijah did that, I don't want you to miss this, get this, understand this truth. In spite of Elijah's failure to retreat with the purpose, in spite of the fact that he's in a place that God does not want him to be, we can see that God is a loving God. He's patient with Elijah. He's tender in Elijah's weaknesses. Listen to what happens, even though he's in a place God doesn't want him to be. It says, then Elijah lays down and falls asleep under a broom tree. He's exhausted. But as he's sleeping, an angel touched him and told him, get up and eat. God sent that angel. He didn't shake a fist at him. He didn't say, snap to it. He sent an angel. The angel, and when he wakes up, Elijah wakes up, he looks around. There beside his head is some bread baked on a hot stone and a jar of water. God did that. So Elijah ate and drank and lay down again and rested some more. Then the angel of the Lord came back and touched him and said again, get up and eat some more. When we find ourselves retreating in fear and discouragement and in isolation, God does not grab us by the shoulders and shake us until our brains rattle. He does not try to slap us back to reality. Listen to how the Bible describes our God. It says, God is our merciful Father and the source of all comfort. God is tender with us in our times of discouragement and depression. He allows us time to work through the hurt and to vent our feelings. But, listen to me, He doesn't want us to stay there. He calls us to retreat with a purpose. After a time of mourning and expressing his pain, God calls Elijah to retreat in a different direction in order to experience God more deeply, in order to empower Elijah, in order to encourage Elijah. God, he takes care of Elijah and he renews his strength. God points out to Elijah that this is the wrong kind of retreat scenario. And then God calls him to retreat to a better place, to a safe place. He calls him to Mount Sinai. Now, if you know anything about the Bible, that name should kind of get you a little bit interested, because that's the exact same mountain where God spoke to Moses. It's the place that Moses and God wrote down the 10 Commandments. It's a place of intimate connection. Well, Elijah takes and retreats to this place of holiness. And when he gets there, check out what happens. God speaks to him. He says, "Go out and stand before me on the mountain." And as Elijah stood there, the Lord passed by. A mighty windstorm hit the mountain. It was such a terrible blast that the rocks were torn loose. But the Lord was not in the wind. After the wind, there was an earthquake, but the Lord was not in the earthquake. And after the earthquake, there was a fire, but the Lord was not in the fire. And after the fire, there was a sound of a gentle whisper. And when Elijah heard it, the Bible says he wrapped his face in a cloak and he went out and stood in the entrance of the cave. And that whispering, still, calm voice said, "What are you doing here, Elijah?" I can just hear the longing in the Lord's voice. "What are you doing here, Elijah?" Elijah got to experience the glory of God. He saw his power. He experienced his comfort. He felt his gentle arms wrap around him. Can you imagine how that encouraged him? Can you imagine how that energized him? Can you imagine how it empowered him? Guys, our normal and natural retreat plan is never as good as God's. Our retreat plan leads to isolation, distraction, a return to bad habits. It causes us to pick up new, unhealthy habits. Our retreat plans lead us to complaining. It drives us to self-pity. But most of all, when we choose our method of retreat, it causes us to stay stuck. Yet when we retreat with a purpose, God's purpose, it brings connection, renewal, energy, and freedom. Retreat with a purpose. So what does that look like? What does that require? Here's what I believe the first thing it requires. It requires us to retreat in order to regain focus. Retreat to regain focus. I want you to listen to what the Bible says. It says, "For we walk by faith, not by sight." We cannot allow ourselves to be discouraged by what we see, especially with what's going on around us nowadays. We can't be discouraged by the way things look. We cannot be occupied, listen, we cannot be occupied with both God and our problems at the same time. One or the other will push the other out. When you're threatened by discouragement that can lead to depression, we must change the channel. We must switch the channel in our minds. We must give it over to God and fill our minds with truth. One of my favorite verses is found in Philippians 4:8, and I call it the Philippians 4:8 filter. We need to filter our thoughts through these things. It says, "Fix your thoughts on what is true and honorable and right and pure and lovely and admirable." Think about things that are excellent and worthy of praise. What is God telling us to do? He's saying, don't just change the channel in your thought life. Throw away the remote so you aren't tempted to go back to the previous channel. When we are discouraged, we must change our focus from the negative, bad things that are happening to truth, the truth of God. And then we need to retreat in order to hear his voice clearly. Retreat to hear God's voice. God says this very simple statement. He says, "Be still and know that I am God." I want you to check out what those two words, "be still," mean in Hebrew. I looked it up. It means cease activity. It means relax. Be at peace. Guys, listen to me. We are best able to hear God's voice when we retreat from the loud voices of the world that surrounds us. Pull the plug on your Xbox for an hour. Take a break from Netflix, Hulu, Disney Plus. Put your social media lower on the priority page of your life. Limit your listening to presidential debates. I'm just saying, last night was not good for anyone. Get up before the rest of your family so you find a quiet house. You're not too young to do this. Go to bed earlier, get up early before the rest of the family gets up so you have a quiet place. Get alone. Get outside. Open your Bible app and read the verse of the day. And then tap on that verse, tap it, and there'll be a little statement on the bottom that says read full chapter. Tap on that too. Go deeper. Talk to God and listen for his reply. Retreat on purpose for a purpose. Look and listen for God's voice, especially when you're struggling with discouragement. And then get back in the battle. Get back in the battle. There's a recurring theme throughout the Bible, and it goes something like this. God does not condemn our retreat, even if it's done poorly. He encourages us and brings us times of refreshment. But he does it for a purpose, so we can get back in the battle. That's exactly what God did to Elijah. God sent Elijah. He restored him. He encouraged him, but he sent him back to the battle. God didn't let Elijah stay there in that perfect place of communication with him. He called him back. He sent him back. Now, very little makes me as happy as spending time alone with Maria Mia, my wife, up in the hill country of Texas. Very little. I love to camp. I mean, it has some of the best views in any part of Texas. I mean, I think I got a picture of one of them. Looking out over those. When I'm there, I'm retreating into a good place. I reconnect with God. I reconnect with Maria Mia. She says I'm a better listener when we're there. I reconnect with my grandchildren when we take them. Check this video out. Now, even though I may want to, I know I can't stay there. As beautiful as it is, I know I can't stay there. There are hurting people in Brownsville who are sinking under the waves, searching for an answer. I need to get back. You and I, we have the answer. We have the answer. God's given it to us. It's Jesus Christ. We must get back in the battle and show him to the world. Listen, road of discouragement. And Jesus walked with them through it and out of it, leading them. Jesus led them back to the battle. Will you join me in getting back in the battle? Get back to church. On social media. Get back to showing love to your enemies. Get back to being a living example for peace and unity. Get back to proclaiming God's love for the lost. Get back to living in obedience. I pray with you guys. We desperately need you. Our normal reaction to disappointment and pain is to retreat into ourselves, into our pain. See the need for you in those who are walking through this life around us. God, give us the courage to get back in the battle. I ask this in the powerful name. Thank you for taking time with us tonight. We're now after this live cast, or it's later on during the week, but talk about it. God has special plans for you, not disaster, plans for a future and a hope. I love you guys. See you next week in person. Hugs.